everyone, welcome back to Show Me How to Win. We're in Orange County, California, and we're in the AEG house visiting John Clair, the designer of Mystic Vale. This is your first AEG game, right, John?
That's right, yeah. I actually pitched them and sold them Edge of Darkness first, but then this was a subsequent pitch and came out first because it's a simpler production. Yeah.
That's interesting because Edge of Darkness is shipping this year.
Yeah, so Edge of Darkness had a successful Kickstarter last year, and it's going to be shipping later this year. Yeah.
Successful. It was funded day one, within hours, right?
Yeah, it funded in like 2 hours or an hour and a half or something like that. Yeah.
Looking forward to that one. But now let's take a look at Mystic Vale. So we got two different packages here. This is the base game. This is the big box, Mystic Vale Conclave. And I guess if you have this, it'll have room for all 5 expansions plus the base game. And is there one more expansion coming out later this year?
Yeah, so the next expansion is in June of this year called Harmony. And then I'm currently actively working on the expansion for 2020. Yeah, so and this box is designed to fit everything that's existed for Mystic Vale and all the stuff that we've got planned for it.
Can you tell me a little about what's going to be new in Harmony?
So Harmony, I'll take us one step back. The expansion we brought out last year was called Twilight Garden, and it was different than the prior expansions in that it was a playable set on its own. So it didn't give you the player decks that you need. So you still need those from the base game, but it gave you enough advancements and veils that you could just play with just the Twilight Garden cards. And it was a relatively advanced set in the types of effects and complexity that was in it. Harmony's similar in that, again, it's a playable set completely by itself. So if you bought Harmony, as long as you have the base game, you could play with just the Harmony advancements as a set on its own or mix it in with prior content. It's a bit more, there's a lot of really cool combinations. There's some of the new expansion stuff you saw before, like for people who have actually know Twilight Garden, there's more of the like epic level 3 cards with 2 advancements, 2 slots filled on it. It's a little bit more intro in the complexity of some of the effects, but it's yeah.
Okay, cool. So I have another big box from AEG at home, the Smash Up one. So just like that one, this one comes with all the like dividers inside, and you have the, what are these called? So tabs.
Yeah, so it's got
dividers.
Divider tabs, so you can split up. You can split up all your content and organize it in there. And it's got a few different options for organizing it. If you want to try alternate setups and stuff, that's also all included in there.
Yeah. Or just throw them all in and, figure it out.
So
not recommended for Mystic Vale, but...
Well, so my set, which is this is my copy here, and this has the base game plus the first 3 expansions all mixed in. So you have these fat stacks of advancements, which is one totally fine way of setting up your game.
Okay, yeah, this box inside was not really organized, so I'll just tell you guys. Okay, so John, can you tell me how did you arrive at this very unique way of card crafting, if you will?
Yeah, so card crafting was an idea I had back in 2014, I think, 2013, around then. I first had the idea of using card sleeves as a component in a game, and through trial and error and playtesting and various games that some worked well, some didn't work well, I eventually ended up at Edge of Darkness as the first card crafting game that I ended up pitching to publishers. And it was an iterative process, starting from the original idea of just how can you, if you were to use card sleeves as a essential component in a game, what design space could that be used for, right? And it was only later, after a couple prototypes that I worked on, that I thought maybe if you combined card sleeves with plastic transparent cards where you could have multiple things in a single sleeve with combo on the effects and the cards, then I was like, okay, that's actually a really cool idea. And that ended up being Edge of Darkness. When Edge of Darkness was done and pitched to AEG, I then started working on a simpler game that was more just about the card crafting, and that ended up being Mystic Vale.
Right. So did you initially have the changes actually on the card, on the sleeves? You just kind of write it in and play test it and see if that works?
No, so I used. It was a complicated process to build. Anytime I work on a card crafting game, it's much more complicated prototyping wise than a normal card game. Nowadays, I fortunately can get like blank cards from the manufacturer AEG works with. So I just have a bunch of blank cards that I can use, and I put stickers on them. But when I was first making it, I would buy these big old sheets of transparent plastic, and I'd have to cut them into card shapes, which is actually hard to do because you can't see the cut lines. You have to like hold it up to the light when you're cutting it. And then I would have to sticker all the effects onto the cards.
Okay, you use stickers.
Yep.
Okay, so for those of you who don't know how to play Mystic Vale, John, can you give us a quick rundown of how you play Mystic Vale?
Sure. So Mystic Vale, at its core, is a deck building game. Everyone starts with a 20 card deck, which, if you're familiar with deck builders, unlike them, Mystic Vale will always your deck will always have 20 cards. Your hand is also not. You don't actually hold your hand. It's on the table in what's called your field. So you're playing out a field of cards, which I can go into more detail, but you play out a field of cards which give you resources and allow you to purchase advancements. Advancements are all like 1/3 filled in. Some of them have this long-wise ability, and some of them don't. And when you purchase an advancement in this game, you're going to take it and add it to one of your cards inside the sleeve, right? And then the idea is, as you play, you want to get abilities that can then synergize and fit onto the cards. And we'll talk about this a bit later, but the way in which you craft your cards and plan the effects to synergize together is an important piece of the depth of the strategy. Yeah. So that's the idea, is your deck cycles. It's a deck builder, but rather than the deck getting better cards, you just make the cards in the deck better.
Yeah, so basically on your turn, you draw cards, and then you can keep drawing until you are happy with whatever you got, or you can basically bust if you have 4 cursed lands.
Yeah, so the way it works is rewind real quick. So basically, on your turn, you play cards one at a time into your hand, which in the game is called your field. And then the second you see 3 of these red curse symbols on your cards, you stop. And then when your turn, so that's actually what you do at the end of your turn. And then at the start of your turn, you can choose to push or pass. If you pass, then you just use whatever you have in your field to purchase new card advancements. If you push, you take the top card of your deck and you add it to your field. And then you have to reveal the next card on your deck. If the next card, in this case I'm okay, it doesn't have a red, but if the next card had another red icon, you would bust. You would discard all your cards in your field and not get to purchase something that turn, right?
Okay, yeah, so basically very similar to, for those of you who play deck builders, it's very similar. Some of these have abilities on them. Some of these have currency on them. You use the currency to get better cards. Some of these cards actually have points, so every time you activate it, you'll just get points. Or these are endgame points, or you can use them to get these Veil cards that will give you powers and also a lot of points. Okay, so now let's get into the strategy part of Mystic Vale. Can you give me a general strategy on how to play Mystic Vale? Like how to win at Mystic Vale?
Sure. So Mystic Vale combines long-term strategy and short-term tactics, right? Because you've got a what we call the commons here, which is all your purchasing options in the game, right? And you sort of have to tactically decide every turn, what of these options that I can afford is the right one to do, right? And your decision on your turn whether to risk pushing or not, is dependent upon your options out there, and other factors, which I can get into. And then there's the long-term strategy, which is where I think, which is really what separates the good players from the really good players, right? Is recognizing particularly the level 3 advancements and the veils that are available, and planning all of your early decisions in the game based around how those where you're planning on being with being able to purchase and use those later in the game.
Okay, so I think what you're saying is, looking at these veils, we have this one here that takes 4 sun symbols, but there aren't that many other cards that has sun symbols on it. So if you go for that sun symbol card, then you're gonna have to wait quite a while before you can get to it. But there's a bunch of other cards that have trees on it. There's one that has 1, there are actually 3 that have 1s, and then 2 that have 2. So in this case, if you go for the tree symbols, then you can potentially get 2 or maybe even 3 rather than just the 1, even though this one has more points, right?
Yeah, right. So based on the current setup, if the game started now, I would be valuing green spirit icons higher than the brown or the yellow ones based on this, right? So a card out here that gives me a green spirit symbol is worth more to me in this game, in this current setup at the beginning of the game than another one. Now, as the game plays, if you get the greens or someone else does and they start purchasing these, that may change, right? But those early, Mystic Vale is very much a snowball game, right? Like a lot of deck builders. Your early decisions have have snowball ramifications throughout the game. And racing to some early stuff here is important. So thinking about that early and valuing your decisions based on that is important.
Okay, what about when it comes to the card combinations? Are there some good card combinations that if you are able to obtain maybe 2 and 3, it'll be a really good engine?
Yeah, so that goes largely to the planning. So there's in the level 3 deck, can be really like Mystic Vale. A good score in Mystic Vale is like 40 plus, but it really depends. Sometimes you'll win in the 20s. Again, everyone at the table is a great player, and someone wins with 24 points, right? So the score value isn't dependent upon the quality of the players. It's largely dependent upon the strategies and the situation. And if you plan your deck, sometimes you can have a 40-point last turn, right? You score more than half of your points on your last turn, right? And a lot of that is about recognizing the cards that are in the level 3 deck and planning to build a card around them. So this card has essentially a multiplier ability on it that says you score a certain amount of victory points based on how many of this particular icon is on this card. So what you want to do is you recognize, okay, this advancement is in a middle slot, right? If I get the icons that multiply off of this ability in tops and bottom slots, right, early in the game, and I put those onto not a card with something on it, but onto a blank card, leaving the maximum amount of space to potentially combo with that effect, right? And you want to plan for that kind of stuff early, right? And I said it's strategy and tactics because someone might beat you to that, and then you need to try to adjust. You still built a card that has a lot of potential. You need to try to somehow fill that or adjust in another way, right? There's a few broader, more straightforward things to think about when you're constructing your cards in Mystic Vale. One is I hear people say, should you spread out your stuff or clump it, right? It depends. Generally, I think clumping is better. So there's a few reasons for it. Like I said, you can have massive turns at the end of the game. And a lot of that is about making a couple cards that are really good because they have just the right things synergized on them. And what happens is if you buy a bunch of advancements early and you put 1 on a bunch of different cards, you're actually reducing the potential of each of those cards to get just the right combo, right? So anything a lot of cards don't have combo potential. They're just good. They just do something useful, right? So I'm going to reach over here real quick. So like your very basic advancement in the game is called Fertile Soil. And all it does is give you 1 mana. It has no combo potential, but it's just useful, right? Put that with other fertile soils, right? Because you essentially want to combine all the things that have no combo potential at all, right? To leave space on your blank cards to make sure that when you get the things that have combo potential, you can actually put them together, right? Whereas if I put fertile soils on all my cards, now I've got cards with the thing that has no combo potential, and I can't put 3 things together onto the same card that could work, right?
I see. Okay, that's actually something that you mentioned that's really interesting because for me, when I play Mystic Vales, I played it a couple of times, and I usually try to spread them out because I'm thinking, well, I want to be able to get them more often. But you're saying that you actually want to leave those blank cards blank until you're able to get more purchasing power later, and you can start crafting those big cards based on your level 3. So basically you were able to get a level 3, and then now you start getting the cards that really work well with the level 3, and you got to leave space for that. But if you have already spread out your level 1 and 2 advancements on some of your cards, you don't have the space for that, right? That's what you're saying.
Absolutely. It's a lot harder. Yeah, if you fill up your space on on too many of your cards, it's a lot harder later in the game when just that right combo is available to actually get it to fit together, right? So you almost always want to try to leave yourself a handful of blank cards through halfway or more through the game, so that when you're at the end of the game and you have enough buying power to buy multiple things and you can buy the good stuff, you can start combining really good effects together, right?
Okay, so now I have these good combinations. How do I get to them quickly?
So it's actually paired in with how do you with building your cards. So there's a secondary reason, and there's a whole bunch of reasons for ways to use your cards and when to push. But actually, since we're on the topic, another reason to combine your cards is it's better usually. Again, it depends on what effects you have, but it's usually better to have some really good cards and some bad cards as opposed to a bunch of okay cards. So why? It's the push aspect of the game, right? So if you've got a handful of really good cards and they all come up, great. You don't want to push. You don't want to risk losing those cards. If your bad cards come up, you can push through them, right? And if you bust, it's not that big of a deal because you didn't lose anything all that great, right? And so pushing. So let me go to pushing on your turn. So in Mystic Vale, as I was describing, at the start of your turn, you can choose to push or pass. If you pass, you just use what you have. At the end of your turn, all that stuff gets discarded, and you start with what you've got there, right? If you push, you take the top card of your deck, add it to your field, flip the next one. It may or may not cause you to bust. If you bust, you discard all your cards. If you don't bust, you get to use your cards and buy. So most players recognize that as a useful way to try to get extra mana. If I push, I get extra mana, I can buy something better, right? And sometimes you're 1 mana short of that thing you need and you want to push to get the 1 mana, right? The more important reason, most of the time, of why you push is to get through your deck faster, right? So if I'm in this situation, right, and I don't know if we can actually see it, but I'm in a situation where the top card of my deck is not a good card, and it's the reason why I have a cursed land on top, right? If I don't push, then next turn I start with that bad card, right? If I do push, whether I actually can use the mana on that card or not this turn, or plan to use it, I don't start my next turn with it. Moreover, your deck, it's not like Dominion. So in a normal deck builder like Dominion, right? You draw 5 cards on your turn, or whatever the hand size is, and that's just what you draw at the end of your turn. And how fast your deck turns over is based on your draw amount plus any card draw effects you play, right? In Mystic Vale, the pace at which you go through your deck is based on how fast you get through the red decay symbols in your deck. And every time you push, you take a decay off your deck and add it to your field, which means it gets discarded that turn. And if you didn't push, it's in your next turn, right? So in your deck, you have 9 decay at the start of the game, right? And you may add some more, you may not as the game goes on. But if you think about it, if you pushed every turn, you would get through your deck every 3 turns, right? If you never pushed, you get through it every 4.5 turns.
Right.
Right? So the more you push, the faster you get through your deck, right? The faster you get through your deck, the quicker you get back to the really good cards that you made, which goes back again to the reason why you combine your stuff. If I combine the good things and I draw a handful of them, this turn I'm not going to risk pushing, right? Because if I bust, I don't want to lose all the good stuff. But it means now I discard all the good stuff and my next turn is garbage, right? Which is okay because then I just push. And if I bust, it's not that bad. If I don't bust, I buy a couple cheap things, right? But if you spread everything out, then you don't give yourself the opportunity to push sort of risk-free, because push without losing much, because every turn is decent. You don't have a bunch of great turns. You don't have any terrible turns. Every turn is decent, meaning you don't want to you don't give yourself that opportunity to push as much. And the more you push, the faster you get through your deck.
Okay, so let me summarize.
Yeah.
So in general, you want to leave the blank ones until you have a clearer idea on what big combinations you want to build together, and you want to make sure you get your level 3, and then you get the level 1s and 2s maybe to go with whatever card that is, and you need the real estate to do that. So because you want to do that, you want to basically combo all your cards together, your investment together in one card. So maybe you put all the ones with the cursed lands on one, because if you get that card, then that card is out, even if you bust. So in addition to that, you want to be able to push a little bit more than you like if you're one of those people who don't like to take risks, because not only does it help you, like most likely there's only 9 in 20. So you're probably you're more likely to get a good card rather than a bad card. And if you do, you're probably pushing because it's not so good anyway. So you're not really losing that much, but you're going to get a better turn next time. And you will get through the cards that you just craft, the better cards, faster that way, because it's always 20. And last but not least, think about the veils, the layout of the veils, the symbols, and get the symbols accordingly so that you don't just pick out one veil. Maybe you can pick out more than one veil at a time. Did I miss anything?
Nope, that's pretty much, that's a good summary. If you've always struggled with Mystic Vale, right, you couldn't get your strategy to click, there's a simple rule to try. Push every single turn. If you have, you can calculate your odds of busting, right? Because you can look through your discard pile and say, how many cursed lands do I have left? If your odds of busting are 50% or less, and you're unable to buy a level 3 advancement, push always, right? And you'll go from struggling at the game to being good at the game just by doing that. Now, of course, there's a lot more subtlety to actually, like, you shouldn't necessarily do that every time, but if you, this
is gonna happen because the designers say so.
But if you play by that rule, you'll actually be reasonably in good shape. Yeah.
All right. So something exciting in the works. Mystic Vale is actually now on Steam.
Yeah, so coincidentally, today is the day Mystic Vale went up on Steam. Yeah.
Okay, so right now we're doing the interview, but I think we're going to put this interview out after that. So if you see this interview, you actually know you can actually go get Mystic Vale on Steam. Right now, they have the base game, right?
Yeah, Mystic Vale is on Steam currently is just the base game. They're working on the expansion. They've given us estimates, but we don't have a hard timeline yet for when the first expansion will be available.
So have you tried the digital version yet?
Oh yeah, I've been playing the beta version for a while. I've had it for, I think we had it up there since December, so I've been playing the beta version for a while and helping them and giving them feedback. They've done a really good job. There's a few features I'm still hoping they can get in there, but it's really, it's pretty smooth right now. I'm very happy with it. Yeah.
It's cool. Yeah, this game is beautiful. It has, and because you guys keep expanding it, it just keeps the experience fresh. And now with the digital front, you guys can really get a lot of people playing it. If you can find people to play Mystic Velvet with you, then you can play the digital one, because there's always someone waiting online to play this game. All right. Thank you, John, so much for giving me so many good tips on Mystic Vale. I think it really changed how I see this game, because I was one of those players who like to spread things out, because I was thinking, well, the better I spread things out, the better chance I have to purchase stuff, because, I'm pushing and I want every card to have something on there. But now I know that's actually not a good idea. So it's good that I talked to you. I want to go back and play Mystic Vale with all the expansions now to see if I do better than some of the other players. But I always play with Sean. Sean's John's friend, who's also a tester, and he always beats me. So maybe Sean is also our expert player on the Castles of Burgundy. So you guys, if you know, watch his tip on Castles of Burgundy. But he's really good at this game too.
Yeah. So Sean was an early playtester in this. He's been playing as long as I have, and probably as much, if not more than I have. So yes, watch out for Sean. Yeah.
He wiped the floor with us. He's like, blah, 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 blah. Okay, we're just like, what? You're already done? You won already? Yeah, okay. All right, thank you so much, John, for showing us how to win at Mystic Vale. Looking forward to the 6th expansion coming out. And thank you guys for watching.